hold it fast or have it stolen.
Now, in Revelation chapter 3, verse 3, he says, "Remember therefore what you have received and heard, hold it fast and repent. But if you do not wake up, I will come like a thief, and you will not know at what time I will come to you."
Once again, Jesus tells the believers in Sardis to wake up, and this is just another way of telling them that they have unknowingly drifted away from the purpose and design of the gospel.
Now, just before Jesus tells them to wake up, he confirms that they've already received and heard what they needed.
Right. One of our main duties as Christians is to have a repentant heart, and Jesus confirms this in his warning, right? So we tend to think that, one of our main duties is to be religious and pious and, think about ourselves in this real holy, weird way, when Jesus is saying, I love you when you're broken.
Right.
And it's cool that you're broken. Just admit it and walk with me, and I will embrace
and do
you.
the best with what you have been given.
Absolutely.
So we see that, with the religious leaders of Jesus' day who knew the scriptures, but they did not recognize the Messiah had come.
See how it says this in John chapter 9, verse 41. Jesus said, "If you were blind, you would not be guilty of sin, but now that you claim that you can see, your guilt remains."
Right, so now you're held to a higher standard, right?
Yes.
What we should recognize is that Sardis, like Pergamum and Ephesus, started out correctly and alive, but they drifted from the initial purpose and faith of the gospel.
They have become so blind to their situation that Jesus compares them to a sleeping person that will not know when he returns. So he's telling them, you may not have intentionally done it, but you have drifted from the gospel, but there still are consequences for drifting from the gospel, right?
That's right. I mean, here's what it says in Matthew chapter 24, verse 44. He says, "So you also must be ready, because the Son of Man will come at an hour when you do not expect him."
Jesus is explaining that his people should be ready for his return, right?
That's right. I mean, when he says be ready, he's not talking about, storing up your food and locking yourselves in a compound, or, trying to hide yourself from some crazy zombie apocalypse.
Right. He's talking about keeping sober-minded about the gospel of grace and caring for others.
Well, here's what it says in Matthew chapter 24, verse 54. He says, "Who then is the faithful and wise servant whom the master has put in charge of the servants in his household to give them their food at the proper time?"
What we need to remember is that we do not automatically become perfect in the flesh when we become Christians. We're still going to make some mistakes, and we need to realize that.
We do. And how we remain awake is being able to recognize our guilt and go before Jesus for forgiveness.
Living in humility and at the feet of Jesus is the only way to keep ourselves awake.
I mean, this warning's not about, us not being ready when Jesus returns. It could be about his return at the end of this age, but it can also be about when he comes for you and I at the end of our life on this earth.
That's right. Whenever we see the Bible mention Jesus' return, we automatically shift our thinking solely
Way
in
down
context,
the road.
of the rapture and the end of the age, and that we're the generation for the end of the age. And we forget about the fact that not everyone that's alive in any particular generation is actually going to be alive during the time of the tribulation. Right. So we have to be sober-minded. We have to realize that we might be one of the generations that live out our life to the end of our lives, and then we transfer into eternity where we meet Jesus at that time.
Exactly. So, the message for you and I is to be ready at any moment for the return of Christ at the end of this age, or for the last day that we're to spend on this earth during our normal lifespan before the time of the tribulation.
Absolutely. It's more likely that you're going to die in a car crash on the way home, or of an illness or something like that, before you're going to be raptured at the end of this age. In fact, there's going to be a small percentage of Christians that are going to be raptured as compared to those who have lived out their life through their Christian faith throughout all the ages. So we need to realize that's a special scenario and circumstance. And so Jesus is not only just talking to those that will be at the end of the age, but he's also talking in context of what's relevant to all of us. And that is relevant, how we're ready if we're to die at any given moment. We're not guaranteed tomorrow, are we?
Thank you for joining Les and Tracy King for A Word on the Word. Visit awordontheword.tv to receive their latest audio or video broadcast. A Word on the Word is sponsored by First Century Ministry